Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 8th of March. And well, that was a nice, interesting start to Friday where we pulled back and we hit that 38% on the ES, and then it just caught a buy and just exploded off that. Pre-market also exploded. When you get these kind of huge moves, though, we usually do expect about a third move back into. I've already seen that take place here in the pre-market. So volatility has definitely amped up. Short-term buyers, obviously, tilting up on that. This also lifted now midterm. Of course, the timing was right of this because we talked about new fund money influx, and once we had the dip down, they started to buy. Then once it got over the 50%, that's huge for institutions to just start piling in, and they did, and that forced whatever short cover was necessary to take place. So it's quite a dramatic run-up. The later part of the day, we'll look at it from a short-term ES standpoint a little bit later. From an NQ standpoint, of course, we're still at the much deeper retrace level, and broader, we never got that steel crossing below cyan to really add to the confidence in the short. That really would have been necessary to really see a strong uptick, or at least from an NQ standpoint to see the cyan rising. That would have been an indication. So we'll see if that's enough to support and sustain it. But you can already see much deeper pullback from the NQ than from the ES. So it's more of a broader market move, which you might say is less tech-based. And from a gold standpoint, still plummeting, though, you are seeing inflationary issues popping up everywhere as far as gold and the cryptocurrencies. They're just a little behind on this one. It's an interesting one, and it's, again, the budget's going to pass. There's this huge influx of more cash that's going to happen. So this is kind of an unusual lag. We should start to see that build up again for a pushback up, because the signs are everywhere that inflation is going to ramp up. And of course, this is a lot related to some of the Brit exit news, where you're continuing to have that turmoil potentially be a hard setup. That's causing some to want to flee Euro assets simply because of problems. And then with some of the U.S. states opening, there's no denying the growth change is going to be back to the U.S., and that is really going to pound the euro simply because people are going to want to be in dollar assets because of it's the only place in the world where anything's happening other than China. So we're back to that story again. From an intraday standpoint, it was back and forth. We reached the peak, started to come back off this, and this is where it was interesting with the little setup that I'm working with the no steel reset, and then the yellow dots coming in when we get the proper. What I was going to point out over here with this box is, as a secondary inclusion, would be the power mode 2, because you can see where like this secondary one popped in. You just started to have the power mode 2 with the cross down below, confirming on a much stronger move to the upside, where you had the shakeout doing exactly what you want to see, which is that sharp turn up in that. But was still pretty effective when it came to some of the short magentas that popped through. And then you can see that was the decline, and then boom, when it converted into the buy configuration, it just was straight up and nonstop. You ended up with cyan under red for most of it, and when you did get the pops, it was just because the steel had dipped below the -13, but immediately turned around off those, and then would start to come up. So every little retrace, and didn't even bother to mark a lot of these positive extremes because they were already on previous algo levels that had already been marked. And as we came to the peak in the pre-market with the big jump up, clearing out the remainder of the shorts, and once they were all gone, then we've seen a lot of these fill back in, at least all of these positive extremes going through here, and going all the way back to as early as this setup. It only leaves right down here around the 78 marker, so it's potential we'll see that, see some action a little bit later, maybe during the regular session. But fantastic ranges. I mean, you're thinking about this is pre-market. You've gone from 66 all the way down to 96. So, I mean, you're already looking at bigger than what you would see in a normal day range happening in just the European session. So that gives you an idea of the volatility that we're looking at, which is significant and not a shock. Theoretically, we should see some move back up towards the highs again there. We still don't have a full reset yet, though, but we've had this steady climb of GSC red. And now you've got Power 2 back above the 13, so it's got some strength in there. But again, the potential for these dip backs down are going to be significant. It's just a matter of watching and following 5K readings as we go. As always, though, I will be up on the Skype chat, popping them in there, and when I have a couple of those other condition setups in there, I think we'll see the change in the paint bar, and the dots will go away, and then you just have the colors changing automatically. Just make it easy that way. As always, though, we'll talk again later. Trade well.